Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, was a king who threw a party to show the world how awesome he was. He was the Persian king Xerxes. But this story will not show how awesome he is, but how awesome God is. Now, the people were living as if there was no God of Abraham or God of Israel, but God was present in his providence. He was present in his promises, and God was present in blessing his people and cursing his enemies. God's presence in our story couldn't be clearer, even though God's name is never mentioned. Now, back to our story. The king calls for his wife and queen Vashti to come and show off her beauty, but she says no. So the king cancels her and looks for a new wife and queen. Next, we meet two Jewish people living in the Persian capital of Susa. Mordecai, his great-grandparents were carried off from Jerusalem and into captivity in Babylon. He adopted and raised his younger cousin, Hadassah, when her parents died. We know her today as Esther. Two shocking things happened next. Esther was chosen by Xerxes to be the next queen of Persia. And Haman the one who hated the Jews, became prime minister of Persia. Where is God in all of this? Still, Mordecai did what was right. When he overheard two bad guys plotting to assassinate the king, he told Esther, and she told the king, who saved King Xerxes' life. Haman was very evil and very prideful, just like his ancestors. Since Mordecai would not bow down to him, he decided to roll the dice and kill all the Jewish people. Then he went and bribed the king with 10,000 sacks of silver to send a decree to destroy and to loot all the Jews on one day, but it was still months away. Mordecai finds out about this plot and tells Esther, "We are all going to die." But he says, "Who knows whether you have come into the kingdom for such a time as this?" Esther tells her friends to pray and fast for 3 days because she is going to break the law and go to see the king uninvited. Two more shocking things happened. King Xerxes holds out his golden scepter and shows favor to Esther. He grants her request to come to her party with Haman, not once, but twice. Haman was pleased as punch to feast with the king and queen. He was so happy until he saw Mordecai on the way home refusing to bow again. He decided to hang him high the next morning. The turning point in our story is next. The king could not sleep that night, so he had the royal chronicles read to him. He saw how Mordecai saved his life 5 years ago, but he forgot to thank him, and that's not nice, to forget to thank someone who has saved your life. The king was so happy to see Haman the next morning because he had a very important question. How should I honor the one who pleases me? Haman thought the king was talking about him, so he said, "Have a parade and let the one you honor wear your robe and ride on your horse." The king said, "That's great. Let's do that for Mordecai." Haman goes home and cries to his wife, but she says, "You won't overcome him, but will surely fall before him." Esther has a second party and tells the king, "Someone is trying to kill me and my people." The king is angry. "Who would lay a hand on my queen?" She points to Haman, and he falls upon her sofa. When King Xerxes sees this, he declares, "Hang the traitor." Now buckle up your seatbelts for a slew of great reversals. First, Haman was taken and hung on the very gallows that he had made for Mordecai. God's providence indeed, and a little poetic justice too. Second, Esther convinced the king to send a counter decree and let the Jewish people defend themselves from attack. God's providence again. The people are happy and cheered for the Jews. Then, on the 13th day of the 12th month, when it arrived, the Jewish people won and defeated their enemies. Again, God's providence. Last, King Xerxes gave all of Haman's silver to Queen Esther. And guess who the new prime minister of Persia was? That's right, Mordecai. They both continued to work for good and declared a holiday. It is called the annual Feast of Purim to celebrate all that happened. We all know now that all of these things happened, not by chance, not by a roll of the dice, but by God's providence. I hope you all know now that even when God seems absent, things don't just happen to us by chance either, but by God's providence. God is always working for his glory and for our good.